Hello, I am Tato Cat. Welcome to my channel. Today we are playing Asphyxia. So the second game in our Pride series. As usual, I know very little about this game. I know it's by Ebi-hime, and it is kind of about love and friendship. It's kind of Yuri, kind of not. It does, however, deal with a lot of themes about depression, so if that's sort of a trigger warning, self-harm, nothing sort of thing for you, then this is not the game for you. You have been warned. Okay, let us get started. How kind of you to finally grace us with your presence, Miss Coleridge. Samantha made a vague murmur of assent as she slunk onto the coach. Her head bowed in an attempt to avoid the eyes of her peers. How long, she wondered, had they been waiting for her? Miss Pope's tone made it sound as though it had been hours upon hours, but Samantha knew that couldn't be right. It was true that she had woken up late, but she had dressed as quickly as she could, to the point where it had caused her physical harm. It was all because of her socks. It was almost always because of her socks. Stupid things were a lethal hazard. Whilst teetering on her left foot, trying to pull one sock over her right knee, Samantha had slipped and lost her balance, cracking her head against the side of her bed as she fell to the floor. Stupid socks. They'd caused her injury more times than she could count. Why had she bothered to get out of bed at all? Being scolded by her least favorite teacher. This is a teacher? All while suffering from the after effects of blunt force trauma was hardly the best way to start the day. It was a shame. Samantha had always been looking forward to this trip for a while too. At least, as much as she'd been able to look forward to anything as of late. Miss Coleridge, what are you dawdling for? I still can't believe this person's a teacher. Look at her. This is a child. Well... You've already wasted enough time as it is, and we're on a tight schedule. I know you girls enjoy being the center of attention, but haven't you had your fill of making a spectacle of yourself yet? Yes, miss, I'm sorry. And again, with the apologies, you always apologize as if your sorries mean anything when you trot them out so very often. Unsure of what to say, Samantha found herself unwittingly apologizing anew. I'm sorry? Miss Pope scowled. Now you're just being facetious. No, I wasn't. You just what? Samantha stared resolutely at the floor. She didn't want Miss Pope to know she was blushing. She didn't want to give her the satisfaction. It was strange just how much hatred Miss Pope was capable of exuding, particularly given she was so small. How could a person so tiny, almost elfin in their appearance, possess so much contempt towards their fellow man? It was a mystery. Napoleon complex? But perhaps that was in part why Miss Pope was so perpetually grumpy. Samantha had suspected for a while now that her teacher had a chip on her shoulder about her childish appearance. Samantha never asked because she knew doing so would be tantamount to suicide, but she got the feeling Miss Pope had been bullied a lot as a child. I'll try not to be late anymore. Rather, I have been trying. Clearly, you haven't been trying hard enough. Trying isn't particularly useful if it doesn't yield any results. Yes, miss. Miss Pope sighed. I hope you know that I don't say these things to amuse myself. Lecturing you on the same thing day after day is incredibly tedious. I have no desire to stand around berating a girl who has no capacity or capability of changing. Yes, miss. Now hurry up and take your seat. Yes, miss. I'm sorry. And I really do wish you'd stop apologizing so much. Yes, miss. Her body scrunched up in defeat, Samantha scuttled past Miss Pope to search for a suitable place to sit. She could feel the eyes of her classmates boring into her back as she wandered down the coach. They were all talking amongst themselves, their voices mingled together like twittering starlings. Samantha was sure they were laughing at her. They always did. Granted, she did give them a lot of material to laugh at, so she didn't exactly blame them. But being the butt of everyone's joke did become rather tedious after a while. Samantha usually took other people's jokes in good faith, but she wasn't in the mood for it today, not in front of her. Lillian. The blonde girl a few months Samantha's senior was sitting at the front of the coach, her hair tied up as per usual. Unlike Samantha's, Lillian's uniform was never crumpled, creased, or wrinkled, and she always remembered to do the top button of her blouse. Lillian's legs were demurely crossed, her tights devoid of holes or ladders, her hands, fingernails cut carefully, 10 perfect little crescent moves, resting on her knees. Lillian turned her head, her blonde hair shifting over one shoulder, and for a few brief moments, her eyes met Samantha's. Samantha flushed, her cheeks turning deep red, and turned away. She hadn't been staring, had she? She hoped she hadn't been staring. When it came to Lillian, Samantha always stared. She couldn't help herself. There was no denying it, even though she often tried to. Lillian really was beautiful. Samantha didn't want to look at Lillian, didn't even want to acknowledge her presence, but she couldn't help herself. I got an achievement for that? Okay. Samantha's eyes always sought Lillian out, without her brain's consent. Though the end result was inevitable, in the brief moment where their gazes crossed, the blushing and staring, the embarrassed slipped away. Miss Coleridge, I will not ask you again. Would you please find your seat? Or were you hoping to keep us waiting until next Christmas? Samantha jumped. Miss Pope's voice was cold, and it made hairs on the back of her neck stand up on end. No, miss. I'm sorry, miss. Now thoroughly chastened, Samantha shuffled forwards, feeling for all the world like a convict being led to the gallows. Honestly, Miss Pope sighed. I don't even teach geography. Why I had to give up my precious weekend to supervise this trip is beyond me. Maybe this is some kind of divine punishment. For once, Samantha found herself in agreement with her sour-faced English teacher. Having Miss Pope act as a supervisor for this geography field trip really was a punishment. Not even Dante could have conceived of it. That's pretty dramatic. Hey Sam, over here! Samantha found herself being waved over by her close friend Roberta. The seat next to her was empty. She must have been saving it for her despite Samantha's late arrival. Saving her seat for so long showed dedication, or maybe it showed that after 6 years of friendship, Roberta knew Samantha well enough to realize that she was almost always late for everything. Either way, Samantha was touched. Thank you, Bobby. I appreciate it. Don't mention it. Roberta surveyed her friend, a small frown on her face. Did you have a rough night? You can tell? The bags under your eyes are awful. Oh gosh. Are they really that obvious? They really are. You'd have to be blind not to spot them. Thanks. Samantha sighed. I tried to hide them too, believe it or not. I guess I did a pretty lousy job. Samantha had never been very good at makeup, which is why she rarely bothered. She often wondered if her lack of makeup know-how was her mother's fault. Wasn't it the duty of any decent mother to teach their daughter all the tricks of the trade when it came to lipstick, eyeliner, and eyeshadow? Yeah, I guess. I don't know. But Samantha's mother had never had the time to fuss over her daughter. However, she had always been too busy. Busy with housework and Samantha's older siblings and her own hobbies. And anything, or so it seemed, save Samantha herself. Do you want to borrow any of my makeup? No, it's alright. I've had enough faffing around with foundation for one day. Samantha couldn't apply makeup worth a damn standing before a full-length mirror, so the prospect of her being able to do so successfully on a moving bus with only Roberta's handheld compact for reference was laughable. Why doesn't Roberta help her? Oh well, suit yourself. You can tell me if you change your mind though. By the way, Roberta leant forward, her eyes narrowed like an eagle's. You cut your hair last night, didn't you? Yes I did. Samantha fingered a lock of her newly shorn hair, twisting it about one finger. Maybe this had been a mistake, although her hair was not short, just past her shoulders. It was still too short for comfort, and she couldn't hide behind it as successfully as she'd once been able to. It left her feeling unpleasantly exposed, which only amplified the feelings of her fellow classmates to rise upstairs. Samantha had never intended to cut her hair this short. She hadn't intended to cut it at all. Not until yesterday. That happens. You get stressed out or something happens, you either die or cut your hair. It's just something that happens a lot, usually to girls, but it can happen to guys too. Looking back on it, she hadn't really been in her right mind. Maybe she should have slept on it. Do you think it looks nice? It's different, I'll say that much. I'll take that as a no, then. That's not a no, exactly, it's just, Roberta hemmed and hawed judiciously, all while coiling a strand of her own hair around her index finger. It looks funny. The ends are all different lengths. That happens when you cut your own hair. So, it really does look bad. Well, it's alright. You don't need to try and spare my feelings. Even if you don't tell me it looks bad, I'm sure somebody else will at some point. I'd rather hear it from a friend first. It wouldn't look too bad if you had the ends straightened out, I suppose. At the moment, I'm just trying to understand why. Every time you have... I've noticed this. If you have curly hair, someone wants you to straighten it. If you have straight hair, someone wants you to curl it. I don't know why. Why? What? Why you cut it yourself? There are people who can do that. Proper professionals. If you really absolutely had to do it yourself, couldn't you have gone to a salon afterwards so they could trim it for you? Of course, Roberta would offer a sensible solution. Roberta always offered a sensible solution. I suppose that would make sense, yes. I didn't think it through. You have always been impulsive, haven't you? I wasn't acting on impulse, not really. I've been thinking about cutting it for a while. Yesterday seemed like the right time. It seemed like the right time? Even though you knew you were going out on a geography field trip today? That you were going to be sitting on a coach filled with your peers, all of whom will be judging you for hours. Well, you know how I enjoy being the center of attention, Bobby. Miss Pope said it herself. Doesn't this seem characteristic of one as vain as I? Samantha tried to rebuff Roberta's query with a dry quip, but Roberta knew Samantha too well to be taken in. Rather than smiling as Samantha had hoped, she instead frowned, her eyebrows furrowing. I get the feeling there's something you're not telling me. Well, I don't need to tell you everything. You're not my mother. Alright, fine. I'll be quiet. You don't need to bite my head off, though. I was only offering you my opinion, which you did ask for, don't forget. Samantha let her head hang, her fringe, the only part of her hair untouched by her merciless assault last night, obscuring her eyes. I know. I'm sorry, Bobby. I didn't mean to snap. I'm just tired. Roberta sniffed. Sometimes I think you don't appreciate how nice I am to you, Sam. I know. I'm sorry. Nobody else would be foolish enough to open the door to you at 4 in the morning, especially not when you're convinced you're dying of brain tumor because you have a toothache. Hey, that only happened once. That particular scenario happened once, I'll grant you that. But you're always fussing about some phantom problem or another. If it isn't pain in your teeth, then it's pain in your head, a pain in your ear, a pain in your side, a pain in your stomach. If you actually suffered from all of the afflictions you claim to have, you'd have died years ago. Maybe I'd be happier that way. No. No what? Don't even think about it. Don't even talk about it. The thought makes you that unhappy? The thought makes me angry. You mean you wouldn't miss me if I died? I never said I wouldn't miss you, but I would be annoyed at you. I didn't put this much effort into being your friend all these years for you to go and kill yourself. It'd be incredibly inconsiderate. What a way to repay me. Samantha couldn't help but smile despite the bite to Roberta's words. I apologize. I'll try not to be selfish in the future. Good. I've invested too much of our friendship for you to throw it all away. You need someone to take care of you. I don't mind helping you, but I do wish you'd be more appreciative. I do appreciate you, Bobby. Are you sure about that? I'm sure. I swear on... Oh, I don't know. De Quincy's life. Why De Quincy's? Well, most people swear on their mother's life, but I haven't seen her so long, she might as well be dead. De Quincy was the first name that popped up into my head. How morbid. Roberta pulled her face. You shouldn't speak about your mother like that. Well, if it's the truth, then maybe I wouldn't if she ever bothered to speak to me at all. Well, I suppose that will do. For the moment, anyway. Yes, I suppose it will. For the moment. What is this supposed to be? Clouds? Fog? Sadness? Samantha stretched, bringing her arms above her head. The carrier bag she held in her right hand rustled, the cans inside clinking together. She had dozed intermittently on the coach, her eyes flickering open every time the vehicle went over a bump in the road, and she now felt even sleepier than she had done before. Samantha didn't like taking naps, even though she so often felt tired these days. It never made her feel better. As such, she had vowed to herself that she was going to rectify this problem, if not for her own sake, then Roberta's. She couldn't imagine that her friend was happy about being used as a pillow. When the bus stopped at a service station, Samantha's first port of call had been a small shop within the building, namely, to the aisle that sold energy drinks. She had bought 4 or 5 cans of some random drink, and now was making her way back to the coach. The sky above her was overcast, festooned with gray clouds. Okay, so they are clouds of sadness. Though the sky seemed to promise rain, the air was cool and crisp. It was a sharp contrast to the air inside the coach, which was stuffy and oppressive, having been filtered through almost 30 miles millions of times. The outside world felt and smelt far cleaner. It was refreshing. Samantha had no real desire to set foot back on the coach again. It felt supremely self-defeating, like bricking oneself up behind a wall. Unfortunately, she didn't have much of a choice. With a resigned sigh, Samantha stepped back onto the coach. She was greeted upon her ascent by rows of red chairs, lined up beside one another like unusual garish graves in a graveyard. There was something ominous about it, and Samantha frowned. How much longer would it take until they arrived at their destination? Samantha thought to ask the driver, but he wasn't there. In fact, scouring the coach, Samantha soon discovered she was one of the only people there. Who's the other person? A handful of girls remained dozing in their seats, or else fiddling on their phones, and Samantha could spy a familiar splash of bright blue hair to her left. That was it. Also, what time period is this game taking place? For some reason, in my head, I thought this was going to take place like in the olden days or something. But I mean, if they have phones and they're on a car, then I guess not. Speaking of bright blue hair, Samantha stiffened. There's only one person who attended St. Mary's who sported such an outlandish hair color. Samantha recognized her at once. It was De Quincy. Tabitha De Quincy, known to most of the girls at St. Mary's as De Quincy. She didn't like her first name, stating it was too old-fashioned for her taste. Was seated near the front of the coach, hunched over herself so her back made an arch. She was holding something in both her hands, and Samantha noted her shoulders were shaking. Upon further investigation, Samantha discovered with no small amounts of alarm that De Quincy was crying. She couldn't see De Quincy's face, but she could hear her sobs. They emitted from her at irregular intervals, interspaced with damp, piteous sniffs. Samantha's grip on her carrier bag tightened. The plastic crackled. What was she to do? Samantha still hadn't forgotten what occurred between herself and De Quincy a couple months ago, and as close as the two girls had once been, Samantha had been trying her very best to avoid De Quincy ever since that day. Should she continue to uphold her resolution even now? Could she, in good faith, when De Quincy was crying? What if something bad happened to her former friend? What if one of her family members had died, or, not as serious, but no less unfortunate, a beloved childhood pet? Well, we'll end this episode here. We will see what happened to Tabitha De Quincy in the next episode. I am Tina Cat. If you haven't already, comment, subscribe. Have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon.